I'm going to be doing a bit of a State of the Union here today, and I'm going to take a bit of a turn and talk to you guys a little bit about what we're looking at going into 2023 or as Q1 closes. So always when we're looking at the ophthalmic market, we start with market sizing. So in 2022, MarketScope is valuing the global ophthalmic market at $45.3 billion. These are manufacturer level revenues, so they are not inclusive of retail revenues, but you can kind of see some of the split outs over here as well. Market size is one story, but the other thing we want to look at is growth projections leading into the next 5 years. So we base this on our predictions of average sales prices, new devices coming to market, procedure volumes, really a whole wealth of things here. And you can see that some of the smaller market segments like glaucoma surgical are actually seeing some really large growth. This is still a newer market. We're addressing a patient population that we really haven't been able to address before. So we expect to see that growth, but this is very exciting going into the next couple of years. So, of course, this year, one of the hot topics is refractive surgery. And, whenever we're talking about what's happening right now, I like to think about what happened historically. So here you can kind of see the procedure mix in the US over the last, I'm not even going to try and do this math, since 2007. And what I find really interesting is the big shift here when femtosecond LASIK really took over the market in terms of the primary LASIK procedure. This shift happened very quickly because it was also happening in the midst of a recession, that housing market bubble. So really we had a decline while we had growth, which led to a very quick shift, which normally is not the case. Normally we have a much slower shift of these market shares. But if we zoom in to the more recent past, you can kind of see what's happened in the last couple of years. And this is where you can really see the COVID decline that we had in Q2 and then the subsequent jump. So I think what we're looking at right now is that increase in volume that we had in surgical after COVID, is that just pent-up demand from not being able to get surgery during COVID? Is this a change in consumer behaviors? Maybe a little TBD. Now I have Q1 estimates on there. These were done at the end of last year, so unfortunately they're not actuals quite yet. We're still tabulating that. We do expect Q1 to be a little bit higher seasonally. That's just usually the case in the US, but I think we're looking to see what share the new phakic IOL is taking in, how that growth rate is looking, and whether or not this growth is sustained throughout 23. So a little TBD on that one. I also like to look at other regions when I'm looking at this. So here you can see what has happened in China over this similar time period. Much slower uptick of that femtosecond laser, but higher penetration of lenticular extraction and also phakic IOLs in that space. So this is just really interesting context to the other. Always when we're looking at China, you have to consider this is a different market. We have higher prevalence of myopia, greater severity, different marketing strategies, all of that. So it's not necessarily apples to apples, but it is an interesting contextual point. We are keeping an eye on the slowdown of refractive procedures, trying to better understand if this is just a stabilization after COVID or if we're actually going to see a decline. And interesting, trying to figure out who's going to grow through this constricted environment. I'm really excited though because we know new technology is coming to market. We had the EVO lens. We know that this is still in the process of kind of commercialization, training, rolling out. We expect to see more growth from there. J&J announced their femto laser. So we know there's more in the pike, and this is exciting because new tech means that doctors are going to be doing more marketing on a micro level. That tends to stimulate procedure demand. That's awesome. Timing will matter on launch in the US though, because this is a large replacement market, so we're excited to see how all this comes through. I know everybody's excited about IOLs, and this is a question I got too, is, what are the enhanced monofocals and the post-op adjustable IOLs doing on the market, and how do we decide where that market share is coming from? So one of these data points here, we're looking at penetration into the IOL market, what % of IOL procedures are being performed with these IOLs. You can see that towards the end here, both PC IOLs and toric IOLs are kind of flattening in terms of the penetration, even somewhat of a decline on the PC side, while we have growth in those other segments. That's part of the story. And of course, the other part here is the actuals. What does that volume actually look like? And the orange here is your monofocal market, which we can't ignore because this is obviously a very large percentage of cataract procedures. But we see the volume is actually growing. So penetration being flat isn't necessarily worrisome because the overall volume is growing. It is perhaps possible that these new technologies are dampening that growth. It's likely that it's kind of coming from multiple categories. And again, you're going to hate me, but we're going to have to wait and see to make the determining factor on this one. So I'm going to jump into probably one of the more exciting pieces here as quickly as possible. Investment sources in ophthalmology. There's a couple things I want to point out here, and obviously in 2023, I did not get the Iveric memo until the slides got turned in, so that number is going to be shooting way up, which is very exciting for all of us. But diversity of investment sources is important, and we have that in ophthalmology. We have a lot of involvement from the strategics here. I think Gil talked about this in a podcast recently that was really exciting and helped me understand what was going on. But this is an opportunity for strategics to invest, and if you look at what happened over this time span in ophthalmology in the world, I mean, 2019 was like our last normal year. 2020, we had a global pandemic that directly impacted our healthcare market, and we still had really high levels of investment. 2021, we're still trying to get vaccines rolled out. We're still trying to figure out what healthcare delivery looks like. We still have incredible investment in our space. 2022 is an insane financial year. We have inflation, we have global currency crises, we have all sorts of things going on. So I'm really hopeful that in 2023, not only is that bar bigger than I have on my slide, but I'm really hopeful it's a very boring year for all of us, except for Iveric, obviously. So the other thing we're keeping an eye on here is where these investments are going. I think this is really interesting. The pink represents kind of a digital diagnostic segment. We're seeing lots of investment in that space. And then just some kind of minor trends here. We know that the cost of goods sold is going up for industry. We know that the cost of doing business is going up for everybody, not just industry, but practices alike. But reimbursement is not going up. So this is going to provide a very interesting kind of situation, economically speaking, for us. Private equity practice and ASC ownership is showing a little bit different buying trends. So they're more like key accounts, longer sales cycles, some more pricing pressure. They're looking for some features, connectivity, standardizations, really for those efficiency gains across the board. And then we're also looking at MDR, and I think in the back of my mind, I'm hoping that MDR has the side benefit of bringing more innovation to the market in the US first, which would be really exciting for all of us. So thank you guys so much for your time here today. I'm gonna go ahead and cede my remote.